call, please.
Mr. McGarry?
Here.
Mr. Wolke? Mrs. Ehrlich?
Here.
Mr. Titterington?
Here.
Mayor?
Here.
Mr. Westmeyer? Mr. Emmerich? We have a quorum.
Okay. Minutes for the July 10th meeting had been sent out. Are there any corrections, deletions, revisions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion to approve in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. First order of the business is an historical district application for 15 South Market Street for exterior alterations. First thing we need to do is remove that from the table. I believe wasn't it July 10th was our earlier meeting, wasn't it?
I think so.
End of June. Still on the table. We have a motion to remove that from the table.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Roll call.
Mrs. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Titterington?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. McGarry?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Okay. Staff have an updated report?
Yes, sir. So this was tabled at the June 12th meeting due to really requesting additional information on various items. Since that meeting, the applicant has really simplified her request. The drawing is not really does not really indicate the true request in terms of what the final look is going to be. So the metal awnings and flower boxes have been removed from this request, and then the spotlights have also been removed. It is going to be just the stain color, which is Black Magic, and I'll pass out around a sample for you to look at. Way over here. So I believe that's the third one down is the proposed color. So pretty much just a jet black. When we reviewed this request, really on two different bases, both on the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties and our design manual, really what we came up with is both do not recommend painting or otherwise covering historically unpainted brick. I did pass around the section, and it's highlighted from the Secretary of Interior standards, and then our design manual section 2.6 is in there as well. Further reviewing the application, we did have some concerns with the proposed stain that was being proposed. It says it's interior oil-based. This would then be applied exterior. Had some concerns on the longevity of an interior-based product on the exterior. So staff does recommend denial of the proposed alteration based upon the following. The brick, which is historically unpainted and unstained, includes character-defining features. Brick soldiers and other bands exist around both the second and third story windows and the Thompson sign at the top. The proposed stain will hide those features and otherwise detract from the historic integrity of the building. The brick alterations go against both the Historic District guidelines as well as the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. And that will conclude my report.
Okay, just to make sure I'm clear, the only thing that's in front of us then is the coloring of the brick, the
Yes, sir.
corrugated metal, soft, spotlighting, the brass gold accent, was that still proposed?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Okay, does anybody have any questions for the staff, any comments?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So just to refresh our memory, the Planning Commission passed the design guidelines, what, about a year ago now?
February of 23.
Oh, it's been a little longer than that. Well, yeah, okay, a year and a half. And those guidelines were, I guess, guess, codified in the ordinance. The council, it was in zoning code as part of the historic,
Zoning code section 114322 adopted the design manual.
adopted that design manual,
Yep.
okay. And so, discussion, sorry, Mrs. Ehrlich, if I'm, gonna steal your thunder, but,
Go right ahead.
the brick, looks like it's, discolored, which this brick could be, treated the same way as the Masonic Temple, Herons, and, what is it, is it Salvation Army building where Sweet Dreams is hopefully going to come in soon? Those were cleaned up.
Yep.
And they remain unpainted.
Yeah, so also at Purebred Coffee did the same thing. That building was cleaned, and then the music store next door where they redid the parapet was
Okay.
also cleaned as well.
All right, so, I mean, that's, all right, unpainted brick is, it's not unusual downtown, and it is what is recommended and included in the design manual, which has been codified by ordinance. The north wall that you see above the north building, that there is a portion of that sidewall that is painted, that is flaking. Is that going to be painted, and if so, is it going to be painted that same color? Not this color, but the color that it already has, which would explain why it's not part of the application.
Yeah, so it's probably better answered by the applicant, if that's okay with you.
Who's
I-
that? Identify yourself.
Okay, I'm Beth Kerber.
Owner.
Oh, yeah, I'm the owner.
Yeah.
Yes. The side of the building has already been painted a cream color, so I'd like to prime that and for possible, mural for the future. And there's a vintage, or a old picture of what was on there before, and I'd like to do a ghost mural on there eventually to kind of throw back to what it was when it was first built.
And what exactly was that? You know?
It was a hardware store, but the mural on the side says Thompson and Sons Furniture Undertaking and Victrolas.
Neat. Okay.
So it's just something really unusual. So that's what I would like to eventually do on the side, and I can propose that with the second step to the facade improvements.
Okay, but that would not be part of this app?
No, that'll be a stage 2, if I get stage 1 approved. But basically, everything's just gonna be black until I can get the material for stage 2, if I can do the stain instead of a paint.
So what if you don't get, phase 1 done, and instead the recommendation is to clean up and keep it unpainted? Will you have a different plan?
It's gonna
for
change
the
the
rest of it?
drawings completely, because the drawings that I had done, that I've already had approved for the 13 side of the building, it won't make any sense to do the improvements without it looking like the whole picture.
Okay.
So in that case, I would just do the woodwork, I guess, and then go from there. But I asked the people at Bryant Brothers to make a recommendation on the paint or stain, so it didn't seal the brick, and that's what they recommended.
Now, is this like a stain, like, I mean, when you say stain, I'm thinking of, stain used on wood.
It's very similar. It goes on brick and it just drinks it in, and then it's still porous, it still, can breathe, it absorbs moisture and...
Staff made a comment, I didn't, have to apologize, I didn't catch it all, about this is not an exterior stain, it's an interior?
The hardware store said it was for exterior or interior. So I've got the it was told to me that it's for both.
Yeah, that'd be, probably my biggest concern is,
It's not something that wears or lightens, when it gets wet, it just gets wet. It's almost like a terracotta where it bakes to the clay. And it's breathable, so it doesn't trap moisture inside. That's why they recommended it.
yeah, I'm getting a little depth in here. I mean, you don't know if this is, or the painter would know if there's any, applications around this that's been used before around here?
I would have to ask
Yeah.
the builders, but they've done a lot of the buildings in downtown Troy, so that's why I asked him. He knows more than I do.
Who was the painter?
Bryant Brothers,
Okay.
they did the restoration and the tuck pointing, and another concern is if I do get the tuck point and stuff like that, and just get the building cleaned, it's just going to stand out more different colors.
I have, Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
it's going to stand out different colors from what?
Just from what it's on there right now, like if the tuck pointing is put in it may look different from the current mortar, new to old. That's one of the concerns I had.
So why paint it?
Well, if it's stained, it'll all be one color. It'll all be,
But in the first place, why do you want to paint it or stain it?
just when I got the drawings done, there were no recommendations from the city. It was basically, there was nothing to tell me no. And the color of that brick is unattractive. There's really nothing historically significant about it. And to brighten the building and to make it stand out and to look better, cleaner, it would improve the overall look. It looks very run down, really dingy the way it is, and cleaning it's not going to improve that.
Thank you.
One of the concerns the staff had also mentioned was I guess it's an architectural feature of the relief around Thompson and the words Thompson. I guess that it would be considered a historical attribute. Had you looked at, or your designer or painters discuss any potential?
We discussed
for-
doing that part in a light gray, so it would pop from the building.
They are talking about doing it with a
Yeah,
different
to
light gray.
accentuate any of the architectural features that are currently there. Even in my drawings that I submitted, you can see that Thompson is not black.
Okay.
So it would
The
look like
sign
that.
backer is though, right? The sign backer would be black.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, unless you wanted a different color, I can do 3 shades of gray if I need the depth to accentuate that.
You would be open to doing that
Oh, yeah.
with 3 shades?
Yeah, I like the fact that it's got architectural interest.
But it still does not negate the design standards and the interior recommendation, U.S. interior recommendations against painting the brick. And my question, I guess, for staff is, you're saying that there's nothing significant about the facade of the building. I'm not sure that's accurate from a historic preservation perspective, is it? Or
So
I'm
the-
saying I wouldn't cover anything that's historically, I would accentuate it to make it stand out. I wouldn't do it all in one color so it washes it out. I would accentuate those features to bring those forward.
Is there anything? Are they,
The brick soldiers, or is that what they're
Yeah,
called?
the
And the sign on the top. Basically, it's a set of bricks
framing
alongside the
there.
bottom of the windows.
all of, all of.
Which I think even if it's painted black, you're still gonna see that.
You are, but I mean, I would point it out to make it look more obvious.
I think doing that would make it stand out more than it does here in this picture.
It would, but when she did the drawings, she didn't see those. She was just going from a photograph that I had. But again, I had these drawings done long before the design standards were put into place.
Yeah. Is the, building on the historic register?
No.
So my issue is we're basically saying we can't paint anything in the downtown anymore.
Right,
I have a huge problem with that.
when 90%
If
of the
it's not
buildings are
already
currently painted.
painted, right?
So you got two separate issues are really the intent behind painting brick, right? So wanting to keep it historically unpainted does two things. One, it keeps the look and the feel of the original brick, so that's one element of it. The other element is the older brick and mortar. You have limestone mortar, you have more of a clay brick. That paint or surface coating does create a moisture barrier, so the original brick breathes better. Now, stain does alleviate some of the breathability concerns that a paint would have. It's still not as breathable as the original. So those are the two items. You want to keep the original look and feel, and the maintenance side of it. You want to be in line with that as well. So those are really the two spin-offs of that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
so I guess, Mayor, my concern with that is if we're concerned that you're never gonna be, if it is a concern that you're never gonna be able to paint an unpainted building, then I'm wondering why that language was put in the design manual, the design guidelines, in a year and a half ago. You know, we did have a significant issue with another property owner, and realized that we were limited in what kind of quote-unquote sanctions could be assessed, with a property owner that unilaterally, without any permits and in spite of a stop work order, painted, an unpainted building, and we were, I think, rightly, very upset that he had done that. And the only reason that we okayed it was the restoration to unpainted brick would have damaged the brick more because it had already been at least partially, if not completely, repainted. And so now we're talking about perhaps relaxing that guideline, and it's not even 2 years old.
Well taken. One of the concerns I've got, and this is, I guess, my nature of looking at things like this, is obviously it's going to probably enhance the appearance of the building if it's going to be colored. But my concern would be the getting a little more information where I'd be satisfied that, okay, this material is going to act like we're talking about, whether it is breathable, more or less looking at the specs for the Czar. It's the manufacturer.
Yeah, it's our,
Yeah, it's the Czar finish. No, the other one had an ULG on the bottom. I don't know whether that. But just looking at the specs on it for the appropriate application of it. I understand what you've said, but I'd like to just kind of see where maybe they give references where it's been used before, that it does have the durability that we're looking for.
I actually painted a brick at my shop. I could go get it.
Well, no,
It shows the saturation though, and it shows the two colors.
I'm not saying it's to delay it by any means, but, I mean, that's just, my opinion. I'd like to see where that's at as far as, what the finish is going to, what it's going to render.
It was just recommended by the the guy who does most of the historic buildings downtown.
Does, is it Bryan Brothers, you said, right?
Correct.
Can they provide some information to?
He just said, use this, it should hold your argument.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying, is could he provide some additional to help support your?
Possibly. I'm sure I can get more information. I
mean, that would be helpful. I see what you're trying to, I get it.
this is
I
just what he recommended, that's
yeah.
why I presented it.
I mean, I've seen brick get cleaned with acid. That's years ago, when I was a kid and doing it. That cleans brick up, but if you can, but the idea of paint hurting the brick for a future does bother me, but if you can prove that Bryan Brothers has that support to say it won't, and maybe it helps it last, I mean, that helps me a little bit more, but it's difficult just to say, go by his word. He says that works. I think he should have something to back that up. And then, I guess the other question is, you'll, stain the Thompson piece, is that right?
Yes.
You won't leave that as that's limestone, right?
Yeah, I can leave it natural. I mean, I can do whatever will work if I can just get the building painted. One of the problems I'm having is I've got letters from the city saying that this improvements to the property need to take place. I've got a guy waiting for me to sign a contract, but until I get the contract approved, I can't go forward with it.
Right. I just think if Bryan Brothers says they can back that up. I would think you'd want to not just go with the word, but have something that backs it up to support that.
He just sent me that via email and said
Yeah.
that should be enough to do it,
So-
but.
Yeah, and I think, it sounds like we're picking directly on you, but I think where I'm coming from is, this isn't necessarily gonna open a can of worms, but like, it's likely we're gonna have other people come in and wanna do the same thing. And we wanna make sure we do it right. Being this is the first time I've seen this done.
Well, I do know that, like, when they did the MKS case study, that it was recommended that things be received on a case-by-case basis also.
Right, no, I know, I
And that was,
understand.
again, before the
Yeah.
design standards were put into place.
Right.
So
But we wanna make sure.
if I had done this January of last year, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
No, I understand. Like I said, I'm not saying it's trying to, cause any delay. It's just a matter of, we wanna make sure we get this right if we're gonna proceed in this manner. And if there is a solution better than paint, that opens it up not only for the historical district, but, citywide. I mean, it gives you another tool to use if it's appropriate.
I think you still have to take into consideration that it's not only the new look, it's preserving the original look of the original.
Exactly, yeah.
And, that's an element of it and the intent behind the guidelines.
And my recollection is, that in January of last year, we still had a whole set of, not just guidelines, but codified in the zoning code, the overlay district, architectural review, and that also, referenced the U.S. Department of Interior, recommendations and standards.
Secretary.
And those, those have not changed.
Correct. They were updated, I believe, in 2021, but that,
Okay.
that requirement or guideline or standard, the intent is to keep unpainted brick unpainted, and that's been around for some time. They've came out with a few preservation briefs. As the technology in paint's changing, it's got a more concern for preservationists as well. Elastomeric paint being an example of that, which a lot of these companies are going to.
In my opinion, and there's nothing personal, but if the intent of the design manual is to retain the historic look of the city, then why go against what we've said in the design manual when we said you want to retain the original look of the brick? I agree this building needs some work. It doesn't look nice the way it is now. But if you're going to start taking on individual cases, when we're going to paint and when we're not, then why have the design manual?
So, the case-by-case basis was an MKSK recommendation. You cannot have a blanket standard that applies to every single scenario that we may get as a request, right? So you have to be able to have some variation.
Thank you.
I'd also mention that we did table this for, several weeks, and we are needing some maintenance done, so, just mention that.
Any other comments from the commission?
I have just, I'm struggling with wanting to let you do this, because I like the look of it. I think it's good.
It would improve the overall
But I
land,
can't,
cityscape.
and I believe that, but I can't go against what our code is.
I mean, we're not painting the brick, it's not harming the brick.
Right, but
And the
again, the
historic-
code wasn't there when I had the drawings done, and had it been there when the drawings were done, she would have done the drawings differently, I'm sure. So I had 3 sets of drawings, we voted on them, I put it online, this was chosen. It's frustrating to be able to do half of it and not the other half, it's gonna look ridiculous to keep the brick looking like brick and redo the building beside it when I'm trying to go for this overall look that I've paid for.
So if this part was denied, then we'd expect to see both come back with a different design? Is that what you're saying? And you probably wouldn't do the other side?
Correct.
But you'd look at something,
I would
for
probably
weeks
do
at
the
the
improvements and leave it as it is. It doesn't make sense. I've got a guy waiting to get the work done. I mean, it's not an ultimatum, it just makes no sense to do the improvements and leave one building looking what I consider rough and outdated.
Even if you do clean the brick, it would still look rough and outdated.
Yeah, it's just an unattractive brick.
And you can barely see the Thompson on the top and on the side, and I think painting it would just make that stand out way more.
And again, I spoke to a architect before I even had drawings done, asked if there was anything that should not be touched, and he said both of these buildings are fair game for improvement. And that's why I went with the drawings. And I understand the historic preservation, if I don't know, I repaint furniture all the time, I do woodwork all the time, and if it makes you love it, I say do it, but
So then we toss aside historic preservation and what we're being told?
I don't really think it's
I
about
don't-
the historic preservation
I don't
because
think
it's
it doesn't
still
preserve the look.
preserving the Thompson on
If you're-
both sides.
If you're accentuating what makes the building stand out and improving the overall look of the building,
It's not taking away from
But
the
that's not
history.
what the historic Department of Interiors is telling us, what Heritage Ohio, their standards.
that's, I guess, what the stain versus a paint is. If it does damage to the building, I can see that. But if it doesn't do damage to the building,
And it accentuates the history of it.
I mean, at one point, these buildings were covered in metal, completely covered. There was no windows to be seen. It was horrific, and so historically, that would be accurate. But that's not what I'm asking for.
Would you be willing to provide that information to us on the material? I mean, I'd have a hard time agreeing with moving ahead. I'm not saying I'm going to agree moving ahead once I see the material, but I know at this point, my vote would be a no, because I don't have confidence in the material alone. When's our next meeting? 2 weeks from today?
Yes.
Yeah, 2 weeks from today, right?
Yes.
I hate to cause you a delay, but I'd like to see the paint specs. This could be provided, before the next meeting, so we can review it.
My question is, can we vote on this? Does the stain, at this point, go against what we're being told by our code?
Painting or it's
Does
not
the
just
stain
painting,
go-
It says coating,
or coating, yeah.
painting or coating. That's what it says.
That's what our code says.
Right.
So at this point, I would have to vote with our code, whether I agree with it or not.
Yeah, and I'm only asking it for for that additional time to look at that material, because if we take a vote right now and it goes, if it's denied, it's denied. There's no coming back. I don't know whether or not, I'm not even looking, I just know that there's some bricks out there that probably are gonna be benefiting, some buildings are gonna benefit from some sort of maintenance and restoration or rejuvenation. It's gonna cause need for coatings, and whether they're colored or not. And like I said, I'm concerned about setting the precedent and the reasons behind it. But if it goes through and gets a no vote, then it's a dead issue. And I would, my vote at this point would be a negative until I see more information on the material.
Is more information on the material gonna change staff's,
It would not change,
No,
staff's
staff's recommendation?
I think, and I say that with total regard for what you people have said. I mean, it's well substantiated.
I mean, I can ask them for more information, I'm not sure it's gonna change anybody's mind, so.
I would think you'd wanna know it. It would help me, 'cause right now you just have an email that says it shouldn't hurt it, but
Well, and
there's no backing. That's I think where Chair's getting at is there's no real information besides an email saying that it shouldn't do anything to it. And I think you'd wanna know, how they're gonna back that, there's no guarantee in anything, but yet there should be some, does it add life to it, does it not? Or will it cause more damage to it?
And you're asking that information from Bryan Brothers?
Some professional, Bryan Brothers would be one, I think. I know
they're the one who's done a lot
Well,
of the
yeah,
work.
they've done the unpainted brick restoration, and they've also done painting projects downtown, so, I mean, they're fairly reputable and have been in the past anyway.
Yeah, if they could provide, their information, testimony, but also the specifications for what the material's made for and where it's been applied in the past,
Okay.
with success. I mean, that answers that part of the question.
Yeah, I mean, I can't vote against our guideline without that information. And also, I've helped clean brick, and it does clean up depending on the material that you use. Now, again, it's gonna still look at that same color. I know it doesn't
Right.
look the color that you have, but it can make it look better. But if you're talking about a different color, I would really have to see that information to back it up, that it's not gonna hurt your building down the road. Because there are some paints that will damage the
Right.
brick down the road, and,
That's why this was recommended.
yeah, but I think you want it in writing and for us to be able to see it. That's
Okay.
my thought. I can't vote, but no right now.
Okay.
So what is the desire of commission?
I can,
I'll move to table.
I'll second table if,
Okay, we have a motion to table and a second.
Before I call the roll, I want to note that Mr. Westmeyer was in attendance at 3:39, and that will be reflected in the minutes.
yes, my apology for being late.
Out time.
Mr. Titterington,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Westmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. McGarry,
Yes.
Mrs. Early.
Yes.
Motion is passed.
Get myself in order
I
here.
don't know why. Nothing else on mine.
Next item on the agenda is historical district application, certificate of appropriateness for new awning and signage at 8 South Market Street. Staff have a report.
Yes, sir. The applicant, Stahl Woodworks, on behalf of the tenant, Crafted and Cured, is requesting planning commission to review the proposal for a new awning and signage, not a new awning, but the signage on the awning, and light fixtures for the building located at 8 South Market. The property is located in the B3 Central Business District. The proposals for the installation of the sign itself will attach to the existing metal awning. The sign will be made of a moisture-resistant MDF, and be three-dimensional routed lettering. The base color of the sign will be black with white lettering and gold trim. The dimensions of the sign will be 168 inches by 15 inches, and a total, have a depth of 1 inch. The sign will be a total square footage of 17.5 square feet, which is below the allowable 63 square feet. It will attach to the awning with metal bracketing that will not be visible once installed. The light fixtures that are being proposed are 3 metal gooseneck lighting fixtures that will extend out over the sign. It's indicated in the attached drawing. It won't look quite like what it is in the drawing. This is just a rendering that has what appears to be large metal brackets that extend up. It's going to be coming directly off the awning, but still extend out and look like it does in the rendering once it's finally installed. Design Manual 5.6 states awning signs design should be coordinated with the architectural character of the storefront. Awning signs should also include simple text and logos on a subdued background. 4.6 the design manual states that light fixtures should be simple in design and avoid large ornate light fixtures. Staff recommends approval on the following based on the 5.6 of the design manual as well as the City of Troy sign code. The signage keeps the overall integrity of and does not detract from the historic district, and the lighting complies with 4.6 of the design manual. And there are similar fixtures installed throughout the historic district. That concludes the report.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments for staff?
Mr. Chair, why am I remembering that not too long ago we addressed some, the awning signage for Crafted and Cured, or was that just an idea and it never made it to the
They
planning
were
commission?
originally proposing a roof sign, that administratively as staff, we recommended against because of the design manual and the sign
All
code.
right, so that's what I'm remembering then. Okay, thank you.
The only question I had real quick is they're talking about gold lettering?
It'll be white lettering with gold
Accent.
trim
The trim
accents.
goes around the,
Yeah,
Like a halo, gold halos.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
kinda like it goes around the windows. It'll be
Yeah, and it's
the
gonna,
same.
it'll really blend in with the storefront itself.
Yeah, it'd be
It'll-
white lettering then.
Yeah, white lettering, yep.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Wait, a motion and a second, roll call please.
Mayor,
Yes,
Mr. Westmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. McGarry,
Yes.
Mrs. Ehrlich,
Yes.
Mr. Titterington.
Yes.
This is approved.
Okay, next item is the historical district application for 322 West Main Street, new wall signage for 2 tenants. Staff have a report?
Yes, sir. The applicant, Quint Creative Signs, on behalf of both tenants, C. Hines Builders and Senior Checkup, is requesting planning commission to review the proposed signage at the building at 322 West Main. The property is located in the B2 General Business District. The OHI formed with this property as a very plain house built in 1839. The original structure was built by wagon maker David Adams. There have been alterations, some of which include connecting the original structure with other modern house additions. The applicant proposing a total of 5 signs. Each sign will be mounted separate. It's 5 total signs between the 2 tenants, and each sign will be mounted separate from one another on the building. The signage will be 3D routed lettering on 1-inch thick HDU board. They will be mounted using a combination of French cleats and other mechanical fasteners, which will be hidden once installed. The tenant 1 signs, there will be 2 total for C. Hines Builders. Sign 1 will be installed on the north elevation facing West Main Street. The sign will measure 23.5 inches by 19 inches and consist of black, blue lettering and white lettering on with a border of umber. Sign 2 will be installed on the west elevation facing South Oxford. The sign will measure 104 inches by 26 inches, and the color palette will remain the same as sign number 1. Tenant two, senior checkup, will have a total of 3 signs. Sign one will be installed on the north elevation facing West Main. It will measure 28 inches by 19 inches, consists of black, yellow, green Nova, white with a border of umber. Sign two will be installed on the west elevation facing South Oxford. The sign will measure 112 inches by 26 inches. The color palette will remain the same as sign one. And then sign three will be installed on the southern part of the west elevation facing South Oxford Street. The sign will measure 60 inches by 17.5 inches. The color palette for this sign will remain the same with the exception of the border, which will be the color softer tan. The difference between the borders is because the building itself has a slight variation in color, so that way the sign kind of blends into the structure color. The total square footage of all the proposed signage on the building is 94.4 square feet, which is below the allowable 100 square feet. The staff recommends approval for the proposed signage based on it complies with section 5.4 of the design manual as well as the City of Troy sign code, and it keeps with the overall integrity and does not detract from the historic district. That concludes the report.
Okay, is there any questions or comments for staff?
Move to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Westmeyer?
Yes.
Mr. McGarry?
Yes.
Mr. Zerlich?
Yes.
Mr. Titterington?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Approved.
Okay, the final item is the, final plat approval for the reserve at Cliff Oaks, Phase 1. This is the recommendation to council.
Yes, sir. So, this was a little bit of reverse because council reviewed this Monday night because we extended we kicked out a week for planning commission so they did a condition on your approval. So I'll make it pretty quick. March 13th of this year, planning commission approved the preliminary plan. Section 1 encompasses 21.3 acres with 54 buildable lots. It's the R4 single-family residential district. This will dedicate 3.599 acres of public right-of-way. They're providing private open space within the development, and that did go through Park Board with the preliminary plan approval. Staff recommends that Planning Commission provide a positive recommendation to council, as well as the dedication of right-of-way. And that'll conclude my report.
Mr. Chair? But you're saying the council has already approved this?
No.
The committee of council.
Committee. Yeah.
Thank you.
Recommending.
Sorry.
And this final plat, it does comply and it's consistent with the preliminary plat that we'd already approved at this level.
Yes, sir.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for recommendation to council for approval.
Well put, Mr. Chair.
What you said.
So, approve, a yes vote is to recommend approval.
Yes, that is true. Mr. McGarry?
Yes.
Mr. Zerlich?
Yes.
Mr. Titterington?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Westmeyer?
Yes.
Recommendation is approved.
Okay. Is there any other additional business?
Yeah, a couple things. August 14th, American Structural Point will be doing an update to the Planning Commission. So, please attend if you can. And then August 15th will be our town hall event, from 6 to 8 at the Troy Junior High School Library. So please, pass the word out, as you see fit.
And you did send emails out to everybody on that, right?
Yes.
Perfect.
And we're doing social media and press release and a bunch of...
We have targeted ads going out for the town hall, so everybody within this location, a radius of Troy will get notified.
I wouldn't be here.
Good. Anything else?
Nope.
Move to
Hearing
adjourn.
none.
Second?
We have a motion and a second for